this episode of Critical Mass Radio Show. I am your host, Rick Franzi. LCP Tracker and founder Mark Douglas have been helping the country understand the numerous benefits of prevailing wage. Prevailing wage has over 100 years of history. Overwhelmingly objective research has demonstrated that states with prevailing wage laws don't increase construction costs, but have many associated benefits. I will explore these benefits and the subject of prevailing wage in more detail when I'm interviewing Mark. Mark, welcome to the studio.
Oh, thank you, Rick. I really appreciate you having me here.
It's good to have you here. I'd like to thank our advertisers, Center Club, Decision Toolbox, NBN Design, SunUp Group, and T & Company for sponsoring our program. If you'd like to learn more about the radio show or my firm, Critical Mass, then visit our website, criticalmass4business.com. All those words are spelled out. All right, let's get back to the interview. Let's start very simply, Mark. Can you define the term prevailing wage and give us a little bit of a sense about its history?
Yeah, absolutely, Rick. I think there's a lot of confusion about prevailing wage. It's not a union wage, and a lot of people do think it is. It's what it is. It's the average wage a carpenter, a plumber, electrician gets paid in a given geographic region, which is typically a county.
Okay.
So how much a carpenter gets paid in Orange County would be the average wage. Now, if the predominant number of workers are union in that area, then of course their wages are going to be prevailing.
Right. Or if it's a more expensive place to live,
yeah,
the wages might be a little more higher.
But
Right.
we see wages from, as a laborer, from $10 an hour to $30 an hour across the United States,
Okay.
depending on where they live.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me about the history then of prevailing wage.
Prevailing wage started about 100 plus years ago. Actually, 1870s, 1880s were some of the first laws in Kansas, and the real big first law was Davis-Bacon in 1932.
Right.
What it was done was to create a bid equalizer. Because government agencies have to go with low bid, what they found was a lot of contractors would come in with unskilled workers, illegal workers, or legal or workers from other states that were maybe in a lower wage rate.
Okay.
And they would come and compete with maybe a region that had a higher wage rate. So that contractor could then come in for a lower cost, but and we'll get to why there's no cost difference in a while, but they would come in with a lower cost because the government agent had to go with the low bid. They would have to hire this company who often would bring in unskilled labor and thus create a problem for the actual construction project itself.
So government agencies are mandated to use low-cost bid?
In general, yes,
in
most of the
general.
time, yeah, unless it's a design build, but they have to go low bid.
Right.
So this was a way for the government agencies to ensure that they were getting quality labor on all their projects and licensed contractors.
Okay. So I imagine in the arc of the 100 years that it's been around, it's ebbed and flowed maybe in popularity or at least perception. I'm so excited we're talking with Mark Douglas. He is the president and CEO of LCP Tracker here on Critical Mass Radio Show. As we talked, as we were prepping for the show, my sense is sometimes the concept of prevailing wage doesn't always hit the CEO of a middle market company in a positive way. They may feel like this is some type of way of creating more cost in the system. And we're going to talk about some of the myths of that in a minute. But how is prevailing wage viewed today in the general marketplace?
I think it's actually fairly split. I think it's a fairly 30 plus states have their own prevailing wage laws. Plus all federal work is prevailing wage.
Okay.
And there's 20 states that don't have prevailing wage, but many of those jurisdictions, even in those states, create their own prevailing wage laws. And I think the reason is because they found all the benefits of it.
Okay.
So, and we can talk about
Yeah,
that.
we're going to talk. Don't go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen, because actually we're going to be talking about some of the many benefits of having a prevailing wage law. We've got about 5 minutes left in our first segment, so let's talk about LCP Tracker. You're the president, CEO, and the founder of this firm. Why did you start this company?
Back in 2001 and 2002 or so, I saw an opportunity in the California marketplace to offer a compliance solution that was all manual. And I saw that there was an opportunity to help workers actually get paid what they're supposed to get paid and help contractors who are trying to do the things right compete in a fair way against their competitors that would compete fairly.
Why did you care?
Well, it came from a history of.
I'm glad you did. I'm just wondering what was the internal motivation to say I can solve that problem. That's what entrepreneurs do.
Yeah, it just came from a place where I felt like I could help people. I could build a business upon that. I could
Okay.
I could offer a service that was very efficient for everybody across the board, the government agency, the contractor, and then in the end, the employee is the one that gets to benefit, the worker.
So it sounds like you built a business to do the right thing.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's what it sounds like, right? Help the people who want to do the right thing to do the right thing and get credit for it and track it and everybody.
Exactly. To do the right thing, to comply with the rules,
Right.
so that everybody can compete fairly, and then create a tool where it's efficient for everyone.
Okay.
The government agency, the contractor, and the employee.
So I imagine the product that you offer in the marketplace today is different than what you had in 2001.
Oh yeah, well, way different. Yeah, it's much more expanded, of course. Yeah.
Was technology an underpinning always of LCP Tracker? Were the original processes built on technology?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I was one of the very first web-hosted service products out in
Really?
the market. Yeah, I think Salesforce beat me
Right.
and a couple others, but I kind of followed Salesforce.com's example of having a web-hosted service.
Right.
I came out with that in 2003, and that was a difficult thing to try to convince school districts and agencies to use a web-hosted service.
Now it's commonplace.
Now
right?
it's common, but I was a pioneer in that.
Right.
Yeah,
Wow.
in that technology.
Excellent. So what is LCP Tracker today then?
LCP Tracker, what we do is we collect, check, and monitor labor compliance documentation, including prevailing wage, certified payrolls, from the contractors in the field on the web. We do all of this automation of what we collect. We verify it's correct. They're not missing data. So we automate the entire process for a contractor to submit his documentation every week
Okay.
through a web-hosted service.
Okay. And how does that help the contractor?
Well, what my clients say is it cuts about 50 to 80% of their administrative work
Wow.
out of it, because it was an old paper system.
Okay.
Now it's all electronic. Once they get their data in our system, it's all memorized.
Right.
And then it changes from week to week, but we memorize 80% of it, and then whatever changes. And we have a really awesome way to collect data from their payroll systems, and a way for them to submit this data. So everybody across the board, from the agency, the prime contractor, the subs, all say 50 to 80% improvement in efficiency.
Wow. And do you have a sense for the employees? Because I would think they're getting, let me ask you this question. In your experience, have there ever been contractors who report one thing as far as wage rates and actually pay another?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's the thing is, it's been a very common practice in the construction industry to maybe have a day's wage rather than an hourly wage.
Okay.
Not all contractors. Many contractors
understand.
are just fabulous,
Right.
but there are the ones that won't. And so, when you work a day, you might work 12 hours, but you're on a day's wage and you're only getting paid 8.
Okay.
So you don't get any overtime.
Okay.
Well, the guy that's doing it right, that's paying the overtime, because he's having to do this on a per project basis or whatever the need required,
Right.
has got an additional cost there that the other guy's not paying. He's putting on the backs of that employee.
Wow.
So no, and so what's happening in the industry is, as this is becoming more of a monitored, controlled environment, more and more of the contractors are complying now, to meet those requirements. And so what we're seeing is more people are getting paid correctly that maybe didn't used to.
Which is your original goal.
Yeah, which is the original
So
goal,
it's
yeah.
really fulfilling it then. And
It's evolving into that goal, and there's some other things that are occurring too, with the fact that many times these projects require apprentices, so the opportunity for an apprentice to get a job is monitored
Right.
and then tracked, whereas a lot of times they won't do that unless there's a prevailing wage job.
Right.
So then these folks that are young, that maybe are disadvantaged or come from a poor area, prevailing wage provides for the funding of most of the apprenticeship programs.
And that's only the tip of the iceberg on the benefits of prevailing wage, which we're going to get into in
Yeah.
the next segment, right?
Yes.
Okay, so don't go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to do that. We're going to talk about some other things. I've got a lot to cover, a lot of ground to cover with Mark Douglas here in the next segment. So stay tuned to Critical Mass Radio Show. We'll be back after these words from our sponsors.
Richard Franzi is the author of 2 popular business books for CEOs. His first book, Critical Mass, The 10 Explosive Powers of CEO Peer Groups, was the first book ever written on the secret value of CEO peer groups. His second book, now with newly updated information, is Critical Mass, The Power of CEO Guiding Principles. Richard's books contain powerful information to help CEOs running middle market companies use valuable insight to improve their decision-making skills. Richard's books are available as paperbacks or Kindle versions from Amazon.com. To find them, type Richard Franzi in the search box.
Hey, did you know that over 73% of consumer packaged goods and retail products fail miserably within their first year? Why? Because they find themselves in the pit of unawareness. You don't want to go there. Call me, and I'll make sure that your packaging gets noticed. You know how I know? Because I'm the founder and creative director of MBN Design. We're one of Orange County's most established and trusted design firms. With over 20 years of experience, I can ensure that your brand will always stay new. Ask me how our packaging sold millions in months, or see for yourself other success stories on our website at www.mbndesign.com. We're MBN because we're making brands new. Call 714-458-8701 and talk to me, Hector Garcia. That's my cell, 714-458-8701. I'll be waiting for your call.
Before we get in there. All right.
I just want to share with you my experience as a member of Center Club. Many of you know that I've been a member of Center Club in Costa Mesa for over 6 years now. I hold my monthly CEO peer group meetings, my annual executive conferences, and my daily business meetings at the club. I found the staff to be professional and courteous. My guests enjoy meeting at Center Club with its newly remodeled meeting rooms, dining rooms, and common areas. If you're looking for a place to conduct meetings, host events, and meet some of Orange County's most successful business leaders, then consider joining Center Club in Costa Mesa. For information regarding club membership and private events, like maybe a birthday party or a wedding, please visit the club's website at center-club.com. Welcome back to this edition of Critical Mass Radio Show. I am your host, Rick Franzi. Mark Douglas, who is the CEO and president of LCP Tracker, is here. As you know, all of our shows can be heard anytime on iTunes, Stitcher.com, Spreaker.com, literally several hundred former guest websites whose CEO have appeared on the show, and the company has placed the audio player of the interview on their website. Since we started our show in 2009, we've reached over 170,000 listeners with our podcast. Simply type in these 4 words, Critical Mass Radio Show, in your podcasting software to subscribe. All right, I said earlier, and actually in the open, you started to touch on them, Mark, a little bit of the benefits of prevailing wage. So could you help our audience to understand from your research and the work that you've done in this field, what are some of the other benefits of prevailing wage laws?
Yeah, I can go over a few of them. So, first of all, there's this myth that it's a lot more expensive to do a prevailing wage project.
Right.
But really it's not. There's dozens of studies now that really it's about equal.
Okay.
And the reason that is labor takes up about 22 to 25% of a construction project. And so when you pay people a little more on their wages, you think it's going to cost a lot more, but the most you can really get out of that savings would be 5%. Well, but most of the time when you hire a high-skilled worker, they're going to do the work faster. So you get an efficiency gain of about 13 to 15% on the average prevailing wage project versus a non-prevailing wage project.
Okay.
So that equalizes the cost right there.
Right.
Also, that people don't realize that prevailing wage really funds most of the apprenticeship programs. So prevailing wage is really the funding source for the university system for our craft trades in this country.
How does that, tell me how?
Well, a lot of the funds in California, so forth, there's an hourly amount that has to be deducted for each hour paid on a prevailing wage project, and then that dollar amount goes into a fund
Okay.
that then workers can go to and get in these training programs that are paid for.
Wow.
So workers get to get trained in the university program based on the funding that's created out of prevailing wage projects.
Right.
So that's the university system. When you compare our construction folks here, they're highly trained, highly skilled workers compared to other countries that don't have this. You can see Mexico, right?
Right.
So you get your university apprenticeship programs through this law.
Okay.
You also have a 15% reduction of deaths and a 50% reduction in injuries on a prevailing wage project versus non-prevailing. So what that results
So
in...
safety is something.
Safety is huge.
So the training and the precautions that people take.
Well, and they're usually run by a better managed company, so
Okay.
they do
Okay.
better job in doing safety things. You know, when you dig a trench, if you don't put trench walls in, they can collapse and kill someone.
Right.
Well, in a prevailing wage job, that's probably just not going to happen. So you have a lot less deaths, a lot less injury, which causes you to have less workers' comp, less people going off the payroll and on the government tolls. So
Right.
it's a revenue gain to the government agency because You're having people work paying taxes versus getting injured and getting on a workers' comp plan.
Right. Plus, the company that employs them, they're going to be paying a higher workers' comp if they have more incidents too. So that saves them.
And then another big cost, which is not factored in, is it's about 15% higher on the maintenance cost on the average non-prevailing wage project versus the prevailing wage project.
What do you mean by that?
The long-term maintenance of the building.
Really?
The quality of the building is always built better, and there's many studies that show there's about a 15% higher maintenance cost on the long-term use of that facility.
And in your opinion, these are unbiased research?
Yeah. In fact, I've got.
Okay.
You know, when I come to our website, we have
that's
the
a good
studies
idea.
all
Yeah,
posted
right.
with where I got this data from.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
These are not my studies. These are not my numbers. These came out of studies
Okay.
from universities and different places. Yes.
Did you realize all these downline benefits when you started LCP Tracker to address the issue of getting people paid fairly?
No, I had no
Wow.
idea. Yeah, I learned this as I grew into the business and as I started studying, because I saw a lot of people making like just bold, wild statements. I've seen congressmen make statements.
No, congressman.
U.S. congressmen make
U.S. Congress.
Yeah, making statements that if we cut the prevailing wage laws, we'll save 20% on our construction costs. And I'm like, that just doesn't mathematically add up. I mean, there's only 22%, 25% that's actually labor.
Wow.
If you cut 30% of the labor cost of the hourly rate, that can only equal like a 5% reduction.
It's
So
just math.
it's just simple math. So when people start making these broad statements, I started looking into it, looking at the research, and going, okay, let's start publicizing what's real.
You're entitled to your opinion, sir, but not your facts.
Right.
It sounds
That's-
like you have the facts from which you can form your opinions, but you shouldn't make a statement of an opinion that sounds like it's based in fact.
Exactly.
20% over, we could save 20% when in fact
It's just not possible.
it's not possible.
Not mathematically possible.
So thank you for calling them out on it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I believe in that. We all have shared facts.
Shared facts, and then present your opinion based on those shared facts. Yeah.
Right. You may have philosophies about it. Why do people attack prevailing wage then in that way, Mark?
I think it's the misunderstanding of the
It is.
facts.
It
When
is.
somebody makes those statements, they think, oh, we can save all this money. But when they don't understand all the benefits and they're not really saving the money, I think the argument will go away.
I think that's I like these teachable moments here in Critical Mass Radio Show, and Mark Douglas just gave us one, and especially as leaders, make sure what you present as facts are facts. Do a little bit of research. Don't believe what somebody tells you. Look at the numbers yourself, because people may lose a little bit of confidence in you if you're stating facts incorrectly or overstating them, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe that.
We've got a few minutes left here. I wanted to ask you an important question. We do it from time to time here in Critical Mass Radio Show, and I think it's very appropriate. And we call it our guiding principle question. We've written 3 versions of our book on the guiding principle. Hundreds of CEOs have given us the answer here. I want to give you the opportunity. Of all the things you've learned in business, Mark Douglas, and as you put together LCP Tracker and you continue to grow it and expand it, do you have an overarching philosophy, a kind of a business approach to what we call the guiding principle for how you're leading and growing your firm? Would you share that?
Yes, in fact I do, and
Okay.
I developed this over the last 4 or 5 years. And
Okay.
what I truly believe is you've got to provide value every time you touch your customer, your employee, your partners, your vendors, whoever they may be. You create value in that relationship, and that value doesn't have to be money. I mean, oftentimes it's money, but it can be just being a friend. It can be caring about them in a time of need. It could be, but it's you feel value when you touch them, and when you do that, you're going to be ultimately extremely successful because, then you end up loving everybody, and everybody loves you, and it's just
Right.
it's an amazing experience I have with my employees and my partners, and
Yeah, you read my mind. How do you bring that to the culture of LCP Tracker, to the employees? How do you translate that to them?
I think you demonstrate it through your leadership
Okay.
and doing it yourself, and trying to bring value each time you touch them.
Mhm.
And then, of course, I've been touting it forever, and helping, and I try to teach it, and I encourage it in my culture, and I help my people to say, well, how, if a customer calls and they're upset about something, credit them, whatever it takes, you
Mhm.
make them happy.
Right.
And so everybody has learned that this is what we do, and we have the most amazing experience. I mean, my support department gets just unbelievable, compliments constantly. Everybody, my project managers, everybody that works for the company gets compliments from the people we deal with, and so I think it has permeated my culture in a great way.
It sounds like to me that it's always a win-win in your world, right? Create value, make sure that there's a win there for them.
Yes, Yeah, you have to make sure they feel whatever they bought from you or whatever time they spent with you, they got something out of it,
Right.
and then you get something back. Yeah, you're right. It's a win-win.
Because I have seen businesses that I feel like they're set up on a win-lose. And I'm the loser,
Yeah.
right? They're the winner.
Yeah.
And as soon as you get that sense, it really changes the dynamic of the relationship.
Yeah, I look at some great companies that are kind of my role models.
Okay.
It's the Starbucks, American Express, Southwest Airlines. Every time they touch me, I feel valued.
There you go.
Right?
And that's their brand.
And that's their brand.
That's
right?
the brand.
And I go, I love dealing with this company.
How do I
Because-
give them more business?
Exactly. So I don't want to do business with anybody else because I love the
Right.
value they give me every time they touch me.
Oh, this is great. Thank
Yeah.
you. I always enjoy asking that question when I get a chance to ask it, because even though we've been asking it for years, it takes us in a new avenue, and there's always a new place to go and talk. And thank you for sharing your guiding principle with us.
You're welcome.
Okay, we only have a few minutes left here on Critical Mass Radio Show, Mark Douglas, so I'm just going to have to ask you, how would somebody learn more about your firm, LCP Tracker, online if they wanted to?
Well, we're pretty well knowledgeable on the Google. That's because we're a software company. So if you type LCP Tracker, you're going to find us. You type anything about labor compliance, you will be there.
So that's the
Yeah.
LCP?
Yeah, Larry Charlie Paul, our
Right.
labor compliance program.
Right.
Yeah, so you'll find us.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll be there.
Okay. And as far as education and people who want to learn more, you said earlier there's research on your website. Are there other tools and things like that for people who want to learn more about
Yeah,
prevailing wage, etc.?
Yeah, we have a whole educational section on our website. We have a lot of educational videos. In fact, some of the information I gave you is on an article that I wrote
Okay.
with all the studies that I've gotten the information from, so they can get on there and get that information. So.
Well, thank you for being a friend of the program and giving a little bit of your time here today and sharing a bit about what you've done. I was impressed with the why of how you started this business, and as I've got to learn more about what you're doing, I think I was excited to have you on the show because I think you're not only a good entrepreneur but a good role model. So thanks for being a part of our community as well.
Thank you, Rick. I really appreciate it, and I think it was a great opportunity for me to actually kind of hone in my some of the questions you asked were good, challenging questions, and made me actually want to really articulate them a little more clearly, which is good because now I can do that, I think, after your show and after meeting you. So.
I'd like to have you back on maybe in the future to talk about some exciting new things and avenues for revenue that you see building in the business. Would you want to come back maybe in
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I have some exciting things coming up. So
we don't have
I'd
time to
love
get into it today.
Yeah.
But I'll have you back and we can talk about that because I love to have entrepreneurs on who build a business and see a market, but then see adjacent markets that either are of equal size or multiples of that size because you've solved the need and now that need appears in other areas.
Yeah, and that's going to happen.
And that
so,
sounds like
yeah.
what's happening with you. So that's a tease, what we call in the business a tease, ladies and gentlemen. Mark Douglas will be back on after June in the second half of the year. We're going to be talking about that in more detail. But right now, we're going to get the studio ready for Dr. Chip Espinoza. He's going to be in here talking about his second book, Millennials Who Manage, How to Overcome Workplace Perceptions and Become a Great Leader, after these words from our sponsors.